nation or one politician. This is not Islamic. If other people do this, okay, but we as Muslims must not do this. So as a society, we have to make legislations and anything needed, teaching, education, in the way that we are sure that at the end, people's reputation, honor, dignity, properties are respected. So I think we need to study again many of the teachings that we have in Islam and understand what Islam wants as social dimension of those values, and just not interpret it in a very simple, personal way. So this is one general point. And another point which I wanted to mention before I go to the discussion about wilayah is something that I have been thinking about it since I was writing the book Shia Islam, Origins, Faith and Practices. When I was writing that book, it was published about 10 years ago, the first edition. I was thinking of having a chapter on major characteristics of Islam. And Alhamdulillah, at that time I came to the conclusion that there are three things that if you put them together, you have the true Islam. This is a sign by which you can test any understanding of Islam. So I wrote a chapter on this. And then I, several years later, was asked to give a series of lectures in London, so I gave 12 lectures on this. So I was even more convinced. Then in Toronto, I gave another series of lectures on this. And inshallah, if God help me, I want to write a book on this. That there are three things that if you put them together, you have a true or safe and sound understanding of any religion, and in our case, Islam. And that is rationality, spirituality, and search for justice. Combination of these three is very important. If you have two of them without the third, can even create troubles. You may be a person who is very spiritual, very rational, but without concern for justice. This is not useful. There are many spiritual people who have also good rational way of looking at the things, but they don't bother about justice. Either they themselves don't observe justice, or even if they observe justice, they don't mind if other people are unjust and mistreat others. This is not acceptable. If you have concern for justice, but you are not spiritual, then you become just an activist. And then in the name of justice, at the end, you bring more injustice. And if you are a spiritual but not rational, then you would have superficial understandings, and it can create lots of problem when there is no rationality. It is only when you have all these three together, rationality, spirituality, and search for justice, that you can make sure that you would be safe. Once we had a visitor, actually there was a group of 4 visitors, but one of them asked me this question. We had Catholic Shia dialogue, so we, thanks to God, had 4 conferences in Europe and 4 visits in Iran, in Qom. So in the second visit, one of my Catholic friends from University of London, from the Heathrow College, which is run by Jesuits, the only part which is run by Jesuits. So he asked me the way from airport to Qom. Inshallah, you will go to that route. So he asked me, what is Shia Islam? What is the difference, between Shia Islam and other, sorts of Islam? So there are many different ways to answer this question, but I decided to give this answer, and for me, it's not a matter of a Shia Islam. For me, it's a matter of any sound understanding of any religion. So this can be very much welcomed by non-Shia Muslims or even Christians, as I will explain. So I told him, for us, according to the teachings of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, the household of the Prophet, 3 things are very important. And in our history, we have always tried to keep these 3 together. Inshallah, in the future also we will keep these 3 together. One is rationality. We are very much rational people. And we have very rich tradition of philosophy, logic, intellectual sciences. We have never banned, philosophy altogether. Sometimes we have had some people who are not that much interested in philosophy, but as general, philosophy has remained very active and dynamic in Shiite seminaries. If you look at Iran, for example, today, you hardly find any town without a department for philosophy. If you go to some other Muslim countries, you don't find any town with a department in philosophy. So this is the difference. So rationality for us is very important. It is interesting that sometimes in the books on biographies, sometimes, they wonder what was the denomination of that person, what was the mazhab of that person. So they say, we don't know what was his mazhab, but he had interest in philosophy. So it's very likely that he was a Shia. So they take this as a sign. This doesn't mean that others are not philosophers, but there is more tendency towards this. And I think this is what every Muslim, looks like. So rationality. Second, spirituality. Spirituality for us is very important. We are not people who are just interested in rituals. We are taught to go beyond the rituals and understand and grasp the spirit of worship and prayer and be in constant remembrance of God. How successful we are, you have to mark us. But this is what we have been trained for. This is what we have been taught for. The day one we go to the seminary, we are told that you must forget your selfish interest. If you think of one day becoming Ayatollah and people respect you, you are useless. This is our training. How good we are, that's another issue. You can, come and see yourself. So, spirituality for us is very important. And third, search for justice. We have taken justice as a principle in our understanding. And we believe that it is not just divine justice. This is divine justice which must be echoed in social justice. So you find that all the members of the household of the Prophet were killed. None of them died naturally because they stood by justice. And we believe that as a Muslim, because this is something that we have Sunni, Shia, all hadith, that in the end of time, Mahdi from the progeny of the Prophet will come and establish social justice all over the world. So justice is very important. So if you have these 3 together, spirituality, rationality, and search for justice, then you have reached the core of our understanding. Then, whenever I see him, I'm not saying 100% because I don't remember 100% of the cases, but most of the time at least, he keeps telling me, you remember we had this conversation? I am still thinking about those 3. That when we have those 3 together, he's a Jesuit, but for him this is very interesting. What we have, inshallah, to address is the issue of wilaya and how social and collective is our understanding of wilaya.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I think if we could keep the topic of wilaya for after the break, we have 20 minutes for questions, and I would like to hand the table to Dr. Jalili to conduct the question sections, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shumali, for the continuation of a very fruitful topic and very precise and adequate corners of the whole system of Islamic teachings that you are manifesting to us. To put my job here is to put question mark on everything. Therefore, to do that, I want to put forward something. Perhaps I have some solution in my mind for that, but I want to encourage you, if you can, in this short time, to tell us about your solution. When we say that Islamic society should be truthful, it is very good, very clear. We shouldn't hide the truth. This is so important that up to some extent, kufr means that, to hide the truth. One interpretation of kufr or kafir is that. On the other hand, you say that truth is something which benefits people. On the other hand, you say that truth should be put forward properly. You said that we should not harm the truth, but putting it on properly. Now the delicate matter comes here. When we are living in a very small society, like perhaps the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that was easier. Now, in big societies with all of this communication and complicated issue in politics, you're conducting us in the political level. I mean, how to conduct the social inclination. The difficulty comes when you say, then what is truth? All of these discussions in human sciences about the truth. What is truth? Okay, if we come to truth, we should claim. But what is the truth? You gave us one criteria, ma yanfa'un nas. What is good for people, that is the truth. Then, what is good for the people? That will rely on our decision, our understanding. If I'm in a power position in society, I say that the truth is that we should go that way because this is good for the people. And the other person say, no, this is not good for the people. I will say that it is, yes, it is true, but we cannot put it like, we cannot tell the people because it is improper. Then it will make harm to us. All of this justification to preserve our position, either by good intention, even by good intention, because the difference between haq and batil, sometimes when we come to our intention, is like, as you know better than me, like a sirat. It is the bridge of sirat. It is so narrow. We say, yes, I did that because it is good for the people. Then if somebody said that, but the people don't want that, then you may say, yes, the people do not understand what is good for them. I am sacrificing myself because it is good for them. What I want to say is that if people have the taqwa that you mentioned before, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Okay, without that criteria, we will face complications, all of these things. Okay, if everybody has taqwa, then these things will rarely happen. But on the other hand, you said that to have a society with this social environment is muttaqi, we need this. But to act upon this correctly, we need taqwa. This is the reason that we have so much discussion about the truth. Otherwise, nobody said that truth is not good. but we create our own truth with our pre-assumptions, with our own decision, with our own background knowledge. In fact, the moment we put some but, this but is very dangerous. When people talk, yes, we should be that, but. This but is dangerous, will destroy everything. Yes, truth is good, but if it's good for the people. This but is the corner as center of all of discussion. So I know that you studied and taught philosophy and you know all of discussion, but also what I'm saying is to encourage you to tell us more. The same question that was related to the opening of a discussion. The same question is related also to the end of your discussion. You said the combination rationality, spirituality, and search for justice and defending justice. Then the question comes here. If it is that easy, we will not be in these troubles. I mean, during centuries, all of these Islamic societies and elsewhere. But the problem is that what is rationality? What is intellectuality? What is justice? Then people say, people do things as spiritual things. From the other point of view, they will harm another part of the Islamic world. But they call it spirituality. They call it rationality. They call it justice. We see that during the Islamic history, very dangerous things happened, but in the name of justice, in the name of rationality. We had people, spiritual people, who killed thousands in the name of spirituality. We had Sufis who killed. Taimur was one of them. When Taimur attacked Iran from the north, he was a spiritual man. His will was to be buried. His will was to be buried upon his sheikh. Of course, we don't recognize that as spirituality. I know that, and you don't recognize. You said that the spirituality that refers to the Ahlul Bayt. Okay, but I want to say that the context is not that easy. When Taimur went to the Shabistar in the north of Iran, in Azerbaijan, he used to go any city, kill everybody. And then he said that because Sheikh Mahmoud Shabistari and Arif al-Sufi is here, I don't kill you because of him. He was so devoted. So what I want to say is that the dangerous place is the justification, the criteria. So please, I know that we don't have time to open, to finish all of discussion, but if you can guide us, because we will have gatherings within the next 2-3 weeks, we may discuss, we may be able to see you again, and our colleagues may be in touch with you, inshallah, by internet and everything. Tell us, to the extent that the Islamic philosophical knowledge or tafsir or other things can help us, how we can defend the real realm of truth, the real realm of justice, the real realm of intellectuality and spirituality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am very grateful for these beautiful questions. Here there is a very, I think, delicate point. about being beneficial and whether that is the criterion for being true. My idea is that we cannot define truth by saying that it is beneficial. I said this is a sign. Because, there are three major theories about truth. And the pragmatist view is that whatever works or whatever is beneficial is true. I don't say this. For understanding what is true, we have to follow the methodology which applies to every field of truth. So if I want to understand what is true in mathematics, so it has its own methodology. If I want to know what is true in ethics, in chemistry, anything, so I have to follow that methodology. But there is an acid test. The acid test is that truth is something that cannot be destructive. Maybe you lose in the short term, but you have to be far-sighted and realize that truth must, in the long term, be beneficial for everyone. You included, not just you. We don't want to exclude you, but we want you to realize that you are a person among many. So, I think you are right. We cannot say that truth is something which is beneficial, and then it creates lots of ambiguities. My idea is that this is a science, an acid test. About those three, rationality, justice, and spirituality. Yes, there are many different theories about each of them. But interestingly, you don't find that many people who accept all these three and still disagree. If you see there are people who are spiritual, maybe there are many, many different views among them. But if you take those who are spiritual and at the same time rational, and at the same time they have a concern for justice, you don't find that many of them in the world.
That is paradise then.
Yeah. So, and this is why I said, to have these three together is very important. And another point is that I think you can make a step-by-step progress towards this. In this sense. If I want to understand what is rationality by itself, and what is justice by itself, and what is spirituality by itself, and then bring them together, it doesn't work. When you want to understand rationality, at the same time you must work for your spirituality, and you must have concern for justice. That is the only time you can understand properly rationality. And the same is with justice. If you want to understand justice, you have to improve your rationality, and you have to improve your spirituality. And the same is with spirituality. So these three must go together. You cannot say, I finish one, graduate from one, and go back and start from the... These are three things that you have to study for one course. Three modules, three major, ingredients for one recipe.
It's an interdisciplinary.
Yeah, yes. So there's one recipe. And I think the more you progress in everyone, helps you with the others. And it's only when you have these three together that you can have proper understanding of each. I don't believe any person can really understand what is justice without being spiritual and without being rational. And no one can understand what is real spirituality without being rational and concern for justice. So these three must be together.
Thank you very much. It's 5:10 and we started at 4:10, so the hour is over. I call this session to an end. We have half an hour break, which you have tea, coffee, fruits, and those who will perform the salah. Salah is at 5:15, so we have 5 minutes to salah. You can...
Dr. Muspai, sorry, because I took the question in time, and he's going to go on the live. It's very important.
Because we have time.
Okay, I think after the session of Velayda, if Dr. Shmuel has time, because it is very important, this issue, in the end what he mentioned is very important.
I agree with you. In fact, when we come back we're going to come back at, supposedly, inshallah, if everything goes well, at 20 to 6, right? I will beg my master here to give 20 minutes of question and answer session, and from 6 o'clock he'll go to...
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. The issue of wilaya is something which is very important for all Muslims, because as we will see, it is something which is rooted in the Quran, and this is perhaps the core of the whole idea of being faithful. But in Shia Islam and also in Sufi Islam, these, and we can also add, in mysticism, wilaya has become much more important, but otherwise it's important for everyone. I have been reflecting on the significance of brotherhood in Islam and the ties that must exist between the believers, and that led me to the question of wilaya. So, thanks to God, some ideas, emerged, and then I found it very important to share with the community wherever I travel. So, normally, whenever I travel and I get one chance to talk, I will talk about this. If I have few chances, so one of them will be on this, because I think this is something which somehow has not received enough attention. So I will try to be very brief. I have a paper, you can find it online, called Collective Nature of Wilaya, and it is in Message of Thaqalain, issue 39. So if you go to the website messageofthaqalain.com or shomali.net, you find this paper.
But you will also give it to us if you can. Put it on the
I also give you the soft copy, so if you want to distribute. But shomali.net. Yeah, MIU-Tehran or shomali.net. Yeah. So, if you want to read that paper, that's the place. There is also a lecture, a video lecture I gave in Stockholm. It's 90 minutes. Perhaps to listen is different from reading. So if you prefer to listen, so that lecture is available. Here we just say something very brief. In the Quran, we have this idea that God the Almighty is wali of the believers. Allahu waliyul ladina amanu. Wali comes from the root wilaya. And this, in its origin, means close connection between two things. When something comes after another thing without any gap or interval, it's called waliyahu. So waliyahu, and the present tense is yali, means something which comes after something else without any gap. If there is a gap, you can use other things like tala yatlu. But if there is no gap, you should use waliya yali, or if you say tala, then you should bring some evidence to show that there is no gap. Then it has been used in Arabic to mean sometimes leadership, sometimes guardianship, sometimes friendship, sometimes being servant, being master. So there are many, many different meanings. But what I'm trying to do is to show you that all these occurrences, these occurrences of the term and its derivatives in the Quran have the same meaning with different just implications. So, in the Quran, God says, إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. This is chapter 5, number 55. Your wali, let us for the time being, we just say wali. Let us not translate it. Because if we translate it, we limit it. God is your wali. Means he has wilayah over you. And the Prophet and those who believe, الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ. Who are those who believe? Those who establish prayer and give alms while they are in the state of ruku, while they are bending in prayer. There is a historical incident that Imam Ali alayhi salam, while he was in the state of ruku, a beggar or a needy person came to the mosque and he asked for help and no one helped him. And Imam, while he was in the state of ruku, he stretched his hand and showed that he can remove his ring from finger. So he took it and went. Then that verse was revealed. Of course, this is accepted by all Muslims, but then how to interpret the verse is a matter of difference among Muslims. I don't want to go into that discussion. That's not my point. My point is that here God says he is wali, the Prophet is wali, and also the believers who have these qualities. And there are also other places. For example, God says that وَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ مَوْلَاكُمْ. God is your Mawla. Mawla also comes from the same root as wali, and God is our Mawla, God is our wali. In Surah Anfal number 40. And there are other cases. So, God is our wali. But at the same time, the Quran says that there are people also who are wali of God. إِنَّ أَوْلِيَاءَ اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Those who are wali of God, they have no fear and they don't have any sorrow or grief. So, God is our wali, we are his wali. This is why I am hesitant to say wali means master. Because if you say master, then you cannot say we are his master. And if you want to say in one case it means master, in another case means something else, then you are losing the whole point that this is one term which is being used. And I think it hasn't received enough attention, unfortunately, by many people. So, God is our wali, we are also his wali. The Prophet is our wali, we are also his wali. We have many hadiths, many ziyarat in which we say to the Prophet or to the Imams that I am your wali, or I am your mawla, ana mawlan lak, ana waliyun lak. Also we say, you are my wali. And in a very general way, the Quran says, indeed, all the believers are wali for each other. Al-mu'minun wal-mu'minat ba'dhuhum awliya'u ba'd. You are my wali, I am your wali. If we are believers, each of us has wilayah over each other. So, not only God is our wali and we are his wali, not only the Prophet is our wali and we are his wali, also I am wali of another believer and he is my wali. So, this is a very important concept. And inshallah it will become clear what does it mean. Something that I found missing in most of our teaching is that normally we mean by wilayah a personal relation between us and the other side of this wilaya. Wilaya has at least two sides. So normally, when I say the Prophet is my wali, I think, okay, this is the relation of wilaya between me and the Prophet, and my brother is not part of this relation. My relation with God or with the Prophet is my relation.